So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to be catching up with you. So you just finished running an amazing auction for OMF. I'm wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about how this started. Where do you get the idea?
Oh gosh, absolutely. So I have always really prioritized volunteering throughout my life, especially before the ME got worse. It was just a really important part of my life, whether it was the animal shelter or the homeless shelter or whatever. Um, but about a year ago, what I had been experiencing as mild ME, unbeknownst to me and undiagnosed, progressed to what I now know is categorized as moderate ME. And thanks to all of the coverage of long COVID, um, I I finally was familiar enough with the the symptoms that I was having, and I was hearing them echoed back to me like in news stories about long COVID, that I was like, I think that's the thing that I have.
Wow.
So, well, being ME, the comparison of long COVID to ME.
Right.
So I finally got diagnosed correctly and began to learn everything that I could about the disease, and was horrified, like immediately, just
Wow.
horrified by the disease, the politics, the lack of funding. And so I I guess I just went into like, I need to do something about this mode.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know enough about the disease to um competently lobby in any capacity or do anything at that point. I need to keep learning, but fundraising sort of, you know, came on my radar screen as something that was, that's something that I can do. And so I just Googled various fundraising mechanisms, and I thought, what is this thing? Silent auction, this online silent auction thing that looks really cool and fun and engaging, and probably, a better chance of raising some money
Yeah.
rather than just doing like a random GoFundMe.
That's amazing that you jumped right into advocacy kind of after you just found out about it. So prior to this, you were going through all these symptoms, but you didn't necessarily have a diagnosis. Wow. Okay. So it took probably there was a lot of research. It's interesting that long COVID brought that to the surface for you.
Yeah,
Finally, yeah.
it definitely was interesting. It was just like a confluence of my disease getting worse, long COVID sort of hitting everybody's radar screen, and then, my ability to kind of put two and two together because I was
Right.
hearing long COVID being compared to ME.
Right. So you did the research. You figured out, okay, silent auction is a way that I could benefit the research. So how did
Mhm.
you come out and find the community and engage them to get this started?
I mean, that's a great question because I was just here by myself in my house. I
Yeah.
didn't know ME existed. I didn't know other people with ME existed. And
Wow.
so it all just happened really quickly. I had only been engaging in Facebook for social media, and my Facebook world is like this big, it's just family and friends.
Mhm.
Um, so I joined Twitter.
Okay.
Like that was the first place I started, and it was just like a deluge of people with ME. I was like, oh my God, look at all these people and all this stuff. And I
So many
started
people.
following, followed OMF, followed ME Action,
Right.
um, followed a bunch of groups, and that's how I found my people.
Wow. See, I didn't know that actually because of the way that you had organized it. It seemed like you had been so connected to the community for such a long time. I actually didn't know that you just kind of came onto the scene. You learned all of this and you're able to connect so quickly. I think social media is amazing with that because
Mhm.
everyone rallies around and we have such a strong community of people. And I think, like you said, that experience, I hear a lot of people saying, I didn't know other people even had this. And then they go online and they start seeing all these people that have the same condition who have lived the similar experiences. So you engage the community and then you started getting these donations. What was
Mhm.
that like? That whole process of getting this auction started. I know
Yeah.
it was a lot of work. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was a lot of work that I was able to do from bed, thankfully. And one of the reasons I chose to do an online silent auction is because it seemed very doable.
Mhm.
Um, so I started way back in the fall of
Oh, wow.
2021 because I thought, okay, there's going to be multiple steps to this. I need to find the people, get the stuff, figure out how to deal with the logistics of stuff,
Mhm.
and then actually do the auction. And so I, put the word out to just people. And then I started to find small and medium-sized companies and solicit them,
Mm.
usually via email for donations.
Oh, okay.
And that started going really well. And I received quite a few donations from, really generous companies willing to just send me one of their things. So I tried a little bit more with larger companies, didn't have quite as much success with that. But I feel like if I were to do it again in the future, now that we have like the first annual and we have a precedent to point to, maybe bigger, more fancy donations are
Right.
possible.
That was so exciting to see some of the donations. I thought it was really interesting because some of them were just so catered to the MECFS community, because I know you had a manual wheelchair and there were
Yeah.
other things like even a Fitbit, which is actually, really beneficial for a lot of people because it could help them track things, like crashes and stuff like that. So was that people with MECFS, were they also donating? Were you able to get community donations from people within the community to get these types of items?
I did get donations from within the community, which was really generous. But most of the ME specific stuff was partly because I wanted this to be a fundraising event, but I also wanted this to be an event for the community.
Right.
And recognizing the spectrum of severity that's out there, I specifically solicited for things
Mhm.
that I felt like people with ME, not only can they attend this auction because it's online, but they can find stuff that's, relevant to their life experience. What good is a trip to Cancun if you're bedbound?
Exactly. Exactly.
S-
That's, yeah, such a good point. And that's what I think also was so amazing about what you did is not only was it accessible because it was virtual, so people can participate anywhere, but it was also these items that were actually going to be things that people within the community could really benefit from in a lot of different ways. And in doing so, you also raised so much awareness of this disease,
I
which
hope
is,
so.
I definitely, what was that like? Because every time that you shared, what I noticed is you'd also talk a little bit about the disease in your promotions of this auction. So it was not only a fundraising event, but it was also just this amazing way to raise awareness. What was that like?
That has been, I mean, personally, that's been amazing. My ability to reflect on that has really come through my personal Facebook page because
Mhm.
all my family and friends are there. And,
Mhm.
I'm basically like shamelessly sharing everything that I learn about Emmy. And initially you're thinking to yourself, people might think that I'm crazy, by constantly posting about this disease. But the opposite was true. I've had so many family and friends approach me and say, keep posting. I'm learning so much. I previously had um, preconceived notions about something called chronic fatigue syndrome. Um, and so I do feel like even if it's within a small universe that there has been some awareness raised, and it started with me. I also had not so enlightened thoughts on chronic fatigue syndrome,
Sure.
years ago. Um, but I was ignorant. And once I began to look at the research behind ME, it just sort of blew my mind. you know?
Wow, wow. See, that's such, yeah, just even one person that didn't know about it before you can educate. That's so gratifying.
Yeah,
Such a gratifying experience because I think you're absolutely right. There's still, unfortunately, a stigma attached to this disease.
yeah,
And it's just such a long history of that that goes back since kind of the beginning of time. It's been stigmatized. And I think long COVID does give us an opportunity to
yeah,
change that. But it's amazing how when we post about chronic fatigue syndrome, there's still such a resounding in awareness about the severity of this disease and what it really means to have it.
yeah.
What was the most surprising thing, I'm curious, that you learned about when you were kind of doing your research on ME/CFS?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. I think the most surprising thing is that it's this weird disease that lives in two different universes. And one is we don't know what's the cause. We don't know what is the cause versus the downstream effect. We don't know what treatments to use. We don't know how to cure it. But this other universe exists, which is like currently being developed every day. Hundreds of studies. Studies are now beginning to be reproducible, which is, like that's a big deal in science to be able to reproduce studies. So it's been most surprising and interesting to watch the one universe. It's beginning to like merge with the other one, right?
Yeah.
Because all of these studies are coming out almost daily, it feels like.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
I know there's so many bad days that people have to live through with this illness. And sometimes it's just the majority of days are really difficult. So, what is one thing that gives you hope on these difficult days that you may have living with ME/CFS?
I mean, it sounds really cheesy to be doing this plug, but it's institutes like the Open Medicine Foundation. It's these individuals, these researchers and people like yourself who, elect to work for them, that it's people like Ron Davis. I mean, what do you say to that? This family who have just gone through so much and now they're giving everything to try to advance this disease. I mean, that's what gives me hope, are these brilliant researchers and these people that are willing to, like Ron and others, maybe drop prior careers, just create this whole new identity of this is what I'm devoting my life to now, because this is where the need is.
Right.
And as long as we continue to have people like that, and we continue to try to fund people like that, that's totally what gives me hope.
I love that. And I totally agree with that sentiment. And you have raised over $11,000 through this auction, which is fabulous, just absolutely amazing that this
It's
is,
crazy. Yeah,
it
it's
is.
crazy.
So you basically, this was all a one woman show. So you, which is even more amazing that you're able to raise 11,000, over $11,000. And so you did all the shipping and you got the donations in. And I know you mentioned for a while your house, or you just had all of these donations that were stored, which takes such a personal commitment to see this through, I'm sure.
Yeah, mountains of boxes. Yeah, mountains of boxes. And then just very recently, and I keep saying we, which is like preposterous because it's me. But I think it goes back to that point of community. I have felt so supported by the people who donated money to make it happen, donated stuff to make it happen, that I do say we, because it feels like something that we have all done. But recently a sponsor came through to cover the shipping.
Wow.
So the money that I had raised in GoFundMe and that I had set aside for shipping, I'm going to donate to Open Medicine Foundation, just, independent of the auction. And so just
That's incredible.
About an hour ago, I got the shipping labels from that anonymous corporate donor,
Oh,
and so everybody, your stuff is coming. I promise you it's coming. I just printed off those labels, and now I have to tape up all the boxes and tape on the labels
oh
and
my
take them to
goodness.
FedEx.
You're almost there. You're almost
So
there.
close. So close.
So close. Because you started this, you said in August, was it?
Yeah, I really started thinking about it hard last summer, late summer, and then I pretty much committed to it and started the whole social media campaign in the early fall.
And did you have any, looking back on that, would you have ever expected that it would have been just such an amazing success from the
I
beginning?
didn't, I had no idea what to expect. Like, I had no idea how to do an online auction. I'd never participated in a silent auction. I had no idea. I had to find the software. I used Galabid, which is a fabulous platform. Um, they made it all like really slick looking, like I knew what I was
They
doing.
did.
I don't know.
It was very, very interesting because it's such a unique idea that I don't think I'd ever thought of or heard of myself. And when I
Yeah.
saw this, it was just such a cool way to rally the community and just energize support for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, this disease in particular, it's sort of like absurd. How do we fundraise? What are we going to do? A 5K? Like,
Exactly.
like
Right.
what? Like there's
That's
just
so true.
right. So this did feel like sort of a perfect opportunity.
So exciting. And we're just so grateful for you and all of the work that you've done to bring this to life. It's really amazing. You've just done such an incredible job with it.
It was a blast. And knowing what Open Medicine Foundation does every single day, you know, it was easy to trip over mountains of boxes every day and have my husband look at me like, what's happening to our home? It was
Uh,
we enjoyed it. The whole process was fun to do, fun to learn how to do, and it felt like everybody was really, on board and supportive.
Absolutely. It was amazing to see, even when we would share this on social media, just the outpouring of support that we saw for this and the excitement, really, as well, which is great because I think we need to have sometimes excitement within our community because there is a lot of darkness and it's really,
Yeah.
really difficult to live through this. So, what you did not only was an amazing fundraising opportunity, but it did bring a little bit of excitement. And that was amazing.
That I love hearing that. That was part of the goal.
You did a great job. So thank you so much, Michelle. And hopefully we'll stay tuned. If this becomes something that perhaps is a future endeavor, we'll be sharing it. We're so excited. And thank you again for all you've done for the community. Over
Absolutely.
$11,000 raised, such a huge success. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you to OMF.